And we will finish actually at just about, I guess it will be just about 11:30. Again, a lot of us are having to vamoose and head back to different places around the United States, and for Michael back to Canada, to Ottawa. So thanks for coming. And oh, the one final thing, our website, by the 30th, I'm not pushing you, Frank, by the 30th of April, we'll have up all of our audio, and we'll have up the video and audio combined. It may be a little shaky, but we'll have the slides as well on the site for all of the sessions. So I just wanted to thank you for coming and keep up with us this year. We have a lot to do. Brian.
Thank you, Jane. Welcome to the last session, or the first session of the last day of the conference. Thank you for coming. Jane stole a little bit of thunder. I was going to introduce the new president and vice president for the RTC, but welcome Drew Clark on board, and Jason, and of course Jane will stay with us as immediate past president with RTC to help us carry on our mission. But again, I'm Eric Ogle, treasurer for the RTC. I also work at the University of Tennessee for the Baker Center for Public Policy. A lot of work that I do is in rural communities, working with local leaders, community leaders, organizations, that kind of stuff, to try to identify issues that's holding them back economically, socially, environmentally. So we go out and work in the field and identify those issues and identify experts at the university to engage them in the community to help communities overcome their issues. A lot of what we do is asset-based development, and that's a little bit what we're talking about today. Help communities identify those assets, and generate economic opportunities out of those. Asset-based development is at the heart of this session today. We're talking about the way communities use technology, to develop their prosperity. And so through time, we've had a plow, and it's reflected in the title of this conference: from plows to tractors, to computers to prosperity. And so plows came along with the rural agrarian society and helped them work their fields with greater efficiency. Along came tractors in the industrial age and helped work the land with even more efficiency, helped them increase their scale, work the fields next to them in greater areas. And so now we have computers in the information age, allowing new opportunities for these rural areas to span the distance, reduce some barriers, and bring new opportunities for rural businesses and residents. But the key here is to leverage the broadband assets that these communities have. And so just like other forms of community assets, broadband needs development. As we've learned, it does an economic development. We've learned that broadband is not a build and outcome technology. It does take utilization, adoption programs to help spread the benefits, the awareness of the benefits of broadband, and bring the technology, bring the communities. So the panels here are professionals, experts in the field of utilization, increasing broadband, adoption in rural areas. And so they're all going to share experiences with their research and the work they're doing to promote small businesses in their states and their regions and throughout the nation. So the first person coming up today is Michael Curry. He heads up Strategic Networks Group, where they research utilization and adoption across the nation, and they work with local leaders to help communities drive that broadband utilization and promote and drive the economic growth. So, and then also coming up after with Monica Babine. She works at Washington State University Extension, where she leads the program for digital initiatives. Works across the state, does some excellent work there. And Marita Stroud, she's from Wisconsin, from the University of Wisconsin, who also works in Extension and works throughout the state on promoting broadband adoption. And then finally, we'll have Donna Edmondson. She's the Vice President of Operations for America's SPDC. She'll come on last, and we'll patch her in via Scott. And so she represents the network of small business development centers around the nation, who are kind of on the front lines there to promote the benefits of broadband utilization to small businesses around the country. So with that, I'll turn it over to Michael.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Eric. Good morning, everyone. Hold up the presentation here.
That's what we all do.
Yeah. We have some really good speakers, so there's a tight time frame. So the purpose of my presentation, the goals of my presentation are, one, to show the numbers about what that rural digital divide is, what does that mean, and then start talking about, with the rest of this panel, what are the things we can do to bridge that? Because as much as this conference title is Let's Gigify America, absolutely. However, for me, the elephant in the room is, as much of the time and money and political capital that's being invested into Gigify America, even more is going to be needed to help, especially the small businesses and organizations, especially in the rural areas, understand what is now possible having this network available and then use it effectively, so that we're going to realize those expected benefits. And what are there are existing networks in place, but they're going to need support and money and resources to actually help those businesses and organizations so that we can continue to grow. So right off the bat, I like to start off with why are we building these networks? Well, we're not building it just for the operators. That's the operator profit, and that's what we call the business case. But we're building these for the benefits of the community, especially rural areas where that business case ends. There are significant benefits that if we don't have that broadband, those communities will fade away. Loss of jobs, loss of people moving out, businesses moving out and not even setting up there, and then the youth. What are the opportunities? And so those are all the benefits that SNG we look at to say, where the business case ends, how can the economic case, where that increase in tax base because of increase in jobs and businesses setting up and growing, help support that so that those communities and regions can then say, look, here's what we can put on the table to make this work. So another setup is, the focus has traditionally been on availability, getting the network out there. But be very clear, this is the research we keep getting up. Availability does not equal adoption. Just because you have that network there doesn't mean people connect to it. There's a lot of operators here. And then just because they're connected to it doesn't mean they're fully utilizing it. And what we mean by utilization, doing email or surfing the web faster is not being online. And for business, extending your reach, to markets outside your region, outside your state is important. That grows your business potentially significantly. And how do you effectively get that online presence? These businesses, they may understand very well what they're doing, but they may not understand how to market themselves online. And that's the key. And that's what we mean by utilization. And economic growth is driven by utilization. So how do we measure the digital divide? Well, we measure by the utilization of internet applications, what we call e-solutions. So let me give you a little bit of background. We've done work across 8 states so far, a data collection, and we've worked in 15 states. And the Illinois example here is we, between 2012 and 13, did statewide data collection, going to individual businesses, organizations, and households, asking them, how are you connected, how are you using that connection, and how are you benefiting from it. There's 110 metrics that we collect, which is on top of the Dun & Bradstreet type data we have. And with that, we're able to do the analysis that I'm about to share you here. So we give that analysis to the state, but also to the regions, and then to the individual businesses to say, here's how you compare to your peers. Because they don't know what they don't know, but when you can benchmark them and show them, here's the things, the top 3 things, and what they can mean to your bottom line, now we've got them aware of what's possible, and hopefully taking those steps to do that. But here we very clearly can see there's a scale here, with the red being the lowest utilization, and then the green being highest. That green part of Illinois, well, that's Chicagoland, and obviously the higher utilization. But there's some red patches in the rural areas of Illinois, and no surprise, folks in Illinois says, yeah, they don't have the resources or those networks to help those businesses utilize them. And it's harder. You've got small businesses that don't have an IT department or even an IT person. What does this internet mean? What does social media mean for me? So that becomes a real challenge for them. And that's why the panel here can help speak to what's being done about that. I'm not going to explain this slide, Because there's a lot of data here, but what this is supposed to show is that we've broken down all the regions across Illinois, which you see across the top, statewide, central, Chicago, and North Central, and so forth, and then sort of half the industry sectors and then we basically laid out, here are the utilization by sector, by region. And then for the regions, they can then see, well, you know what, we're low we want to, in this case, manufacturing processing, this is important for us. Are we competitive? Public administration, which is actually low across the board. Local governments are not using this effectively. How can we offer better service and even cut costs? So that's a tool for them. But it really then highlights also the rural areas, how they're underutilized. In terms of the anchor institutions, I know this is important for the Shelby folks and other folks with statewide initiatives. The rural, which is the non-metro, there's some significant differences in utilization as compared to the metro areas in terms of their DEI scores. And we measure DEI on a scale of 1 to 10. There's 17 e-solutions or internet applications that we track across all industry sectors. And there is a gap in difference. There's a digital divide with households. And the key takeaway from this one is, if you're young and rich, you're almost twice the level of utilization as when you're old and poor. 7 8 score for utilization and 65 or less than 30,000, just over 4.02. So that's pretty stark. By community size, again, smaller communities are at lower levels of utilization. And just to give you some context, we've got over 45,000 records in our database, and that's where this data is being drawn from. Again, in terms of number of businesses, the smaller your business, the lower your utilization score. Again, as I said, they don't have IT departments, and they may not even have an IT person. But it's critical because for my presentation on Tuesday, of all the net new jobs that are being created from 2013 to 2015 from our data, 51.4% of those jobs are enabled, created because of being online. So if you're not online, if you're not taking advantage of those tools, then you're really missing out. Between the community sizes for businesses, again, there's a divide. You're seeing this theme, we're hitting it home with the data, and I don't want to go too much in this, but when you break that into also the industry sectors, there's also gaps. And it's especially strong with professional technical services and public administration. They're lower than their urban peers. And again, the question is, how do we support those rural areas that don't have access to those number of peers and those technology vendors that understand this technology can help them? Because we're working in places like New York and Kansas where they say, okay, I get this. I know I need to implement this. Who can help me? And there's actually sometimes they don't even know who the vendors are locally to help them. So what can be done about that? And getting a little more specific, these are the e-solutions of the internet applications that we're seeing are the slowest to adopt. Email, web, people get pretty quickly, but these accessing collaborative tools, advertising, promotion, it takes a little more to understand what that's about and how to implement it in your organizational operations. But that's where the biggest growth opportunities are, or cost savings or service improvement opportunities are. I'll end there. Monica, please.
Don't you love technology? The technician had a hard time pulling my PowerPoint up, so I haven't gone through this, so this will be a grand surprise for all of us. Good morning, my name is Monica Babian. I'm with Washington State University. Washington State University is a rural land-grant university in the state of Washington, obviously. We have 4 campuses, about 27,000 students, and an extension program that is offered in all 39 counties of our state. A little history of the work that I do at Extension. our program for digital initiatives really got its start back in 1989 when we led one of the first telecommuting research projects in the country. And then for about a decade, we spent that time continuing research on telecommuting, and we did promotion, we developed training, a variety of activities. In about 2000, we said, what's the next step? What else should we be doing? We're a research university, for goodness sakes. And so we pulled together a statewide coalition, and we asked the question, if you can telework across town, could you telework in rural? And the group said, that sounds like a really great thing for you to work on. So off we went exploring this idea. We wondered if we were a little crazy, so our first stop was in Aspen, where we came and met with many of the rural telecommunication leaders of the day. And this was one of the first RTC gatherings. So I'd like to say thank you to RTC, because it's because of that meeting and this crazy idea that we had that we've gone on this journey since 2000. We participated in and led 3 demonstration research projects around telework, telecommuting. And at the end of it, what we found was that we needed to expand our definition of telework. It was no longer urban telework that was part-time work from home. It was rural entrepreneurs. It was lone eagles. It was any remote work that was going on. We even included satellite or branch offices. If there was technology involved, we called it telework. Because of that early work and that early research, we were successful in securing 5 of the 11 ARA-funded statewide State Broadband Office Local Technology Planning Team grants. And so we began our work. And what I'd like to do today is just tell you a little bit about that work. Here's our approach that we took. We're in an extension. We did not go and do this 2 people or 4 people. We did this with them, and we were invited. We formed teams. In 4 of our 5 projects, the Economic Development Council in the area was actually the lead and brought us on to help with technical assistance. It was very much a partnership. We had stakeholders from all walks of life involved in these projects. And in each project, we let the team of stakeholders identify what tasks they wanted to focus on regarding increasing broadband awareness, the relevance issue, access both to a network and to the technology that you need on the end of it, and then adoption. And when we talk about adoption, it is everything from the actual adoption that you hear telecommunication providers talk about, which is, their take rate, buying their service, to the training and the use or utilization, as Michael called it. We developed customized work plans. It was really based on their local needs, leveraged, our previous research resources, reached out to others that were doing rural work, and continued it. We came in as a coach, an advocate, and a guide. We were not an outside consultant. Our main goal was to increase the local capacity of folks in the area. So when the project was done, because these local technology planning team projects were only about 9 months on the ground, when it was done, there was some capacity locally to continue this work. And then we shared our results. And all of our results for all of these things I've talked about so far and what I'll talk about going forward are out on the web and available for anyone to use. So I could talk about the approach for hours. I could talk about our projects for hours. I'm going to just go through some high points of a few of the projects. So in Colville, Washington, which is a small town in northeastern Washington, one of the efforts that we pulled together with our library partners was a gadget garage. And this was all the latest and greatest technology, all these tools. We brought them together. We developed a matrix that explained what all of them did and showed the different applications, talked about the cost and why you might choose that. And then we gave people an opportunity to try before you buy. The state library liked it so much, they developed a gadget menagerie, And they took it on a road trip last year in our state to show that. Anybody else done tech petting zoos or anything similar to this? Just curious, I've heard of some around the country. The second project in our local technology planning team in the Colville area, or LTPT as we call them, was a tech expo. We provided technology workshops, we had vendor exhibits, we had a Wi-Fi hotspot and computers for access. We brought our gadget garage there. Now, in big cities, having a tech expo is pretty commonplace, but in a town of 5,000, this was quite unique. Lincoln County was the second project I'd like to highlight, and this project was interesting because what happened was the county commissioners said, what we'd like to do is we'd like our public utility district, our PUD, to get into the broadband business. And I said, great, how do you know that's a good idea? And they said, because we need broadband. And I said, maybe we should do a little work on that. So we did a lot of data gathering. We inventoried the current infrastructure. We went out and interviewed anchor institutions. We did some surveys of business. We worked with schools, a variety of different outreach efforts and data gathering. And in the end, we also interviewed about a half dozen of the public utility districts in Washington State that are in the broadband business. And we learned about lessons learned from them, best practices, and their words of wisdom and warning. We brought this information back to the county commissioners, and they said, I don't think we're ready to do this, which made sense to me because this was a PUD in name only. They had no services that they offer and no staff. So we didn't end up doing the broadband for their PUD, but it was a great project in many ways because we increased everyone's understanding of broadband, especially its importance with community and economic development. We identified double the number of telecommunications provider in this county than any of the county leaders knew about. And we started to identify some of the needs of business and others related to adoption or use of broadband. Out in the West Olympic Peninsula, the far west part of the United States, actually one of the tribes that we worked with is in the northwest most northwest corner of our state and the continental U.S. We had 3 tribes that presented these broadband case studies and requests for assistance through something that we call tech teams. And they made these presentations. We had resource providers there. The results to date, and this was last spring when they made these presentations, was that one of the tribes has built out to infrastructure through partnerships developed during this local technology planning team effort. They built out to their school, and now their children are not riding buses 20 miles to a neighboring community to take our mandated state education tests. One of the tribes applied for a USDA Community Connect grant, and 2 of the tribes have state-funded feasibility studies for broadband, and they're working on that now. Klickitat, Skamania County was an interesting county in that we had been working with them since 2007 on broadband. And we were fortunate enough to get 2 rounds of these local technology planning team grants. And what you see here is just a laundry list of the results of that work. I'll just give you a minute to take a peek at it. This was a pretty incredible program, and a lot of the work that we did with it is work that helped inform some of these other activities that we did as part of the local technology planning teams. And really, it's what we found in it is the processes that we developed, the surveying that we did, all of this information is very replicable and customizable for any community, and we welcome folks to take a look at our stuff and use any that might be helpful. So here's the headline: no more ARA funds, our broadband office closed. We have no support for broadband in the statewide. and yet we're not there yet. We are still working on both wireless and wireline issues. We still have great needs, so our work continues. But we made progress, and so because of that progress, we've been able to do some other activities and continue some work. And I leave here and go to Odessa, Washington tomorrow to participate in our the second of our distributed conference model statewide world conferences on entrepreneurship. Now, prior to doing these distributed model conference, where we have a keynote presenter deliver, a national expert on entrepreneurship deliver the webinar, and then we've helped develop local activities and working sessions for folks to do, and then facilitate it at 18 sites around the state. These activities will go on, building on what the presenter talked about, and then doing, addressing local needs and opportunities and developing work plans. We have 18 sites. We have 245 people registered as of yesterday. This is higher than any of the statewide rural conferences that we had done before, where we did the traditional 2-day, come to the middle of the state, eat rubber chicken, and go home all by yourself. We have local teams that will work based on this. And so I'll be tired, but I'm excited to get to this. Our local technology planning team work also caught the attention of the lead in our state for FirstNet. How many are familiar with FirstNet? Okay, good. I won't bore you with the details then. So we have been brought on to do outreach and education for FirstNet. In Washington, we've branded it as OneNet. And so we're continuing our work, and it's allowing us time to continue to go out and work on the greater broadband needs as we're working across our 39 counties and our 29 tribes. Which leads me to the last, tribal efforts. We have been very engaged in tribal. Most of our tribes are very rural and very remote, and many are very small, and they still have some of the greatest need. So we have been working with a multi-state organization, the Affiliated Tribes of the Northwest Indians, AT&I. We're on their telecommunications and energy committee. We've been doing federal and broadband policy and program work. We've done work with USDA, doing workshops and site visits with tribes. We have a tribal liaison for T3, or for our OneNet program, and then T3 is a soon-to-be established nonprofit, tribally led, focused on tribal broadband technology training, policy, and infrastructure work. We've still got lots of work to do, and we will continue to do that. Thanks so much for letting me be here today. I'm appreciative of this opportunity and for RTC for giving us our start. Please contact me if I can help in any way. Thank you.
From UW Extension in Madison, Wisconsin. And I have to just start off by saying it has been so great to walk around and have everybody say, we were so rooting for you, Badgers. So it's been really nice to hear that. We are a red state, and what I mean by we are one of the 19 states, or I guess it's now 17, that do have some language that prohibits us from doing municipal broadband. That said, we like the story you've been just hearing from Washington State. We've been working on broadband for some time. And we were one of the recipients that actually received 2 grants from NTIA to do adoption and to address access and bring infrastructure. We were really thankful for that, and we named our endeavor Building Community Capacity Through Broadband. I laugh because I think there's a language of extension that it's always about building local capacity, and we've really stayed true to that. Today, I want to talk to you about one particular program that we're really excited about. that we think is really aimed totally at adoption and utilization, and can be a really short-term as well as long-term win for the community and for local businesses. But I wanted to just share first our framework. If you've not heard of John Cotter's organizational change, leadership change model, has anyone heard of that in the room? Just if you can raise your hand. It's something that we've really embraced in Wisconsin. It's been tweaked. He's a Harvard professor. It came back up. Okay. It's been around for a long time. I think he has 19 books. The most recent book is called Accelerating Change. And the reason I bring that up is because what we've really learned is that there are steps. And he says there's 8 steps. We really believe that that is what is required to both address adoption and access. And so I'm not going to talk about all the other things that we're engaged in, like having listening sessions in very, very rural communities and counties, building small coalitions to address the topic, doing what we call broadband boot camps on an annual basis, and reboots for that matter. But what I want to focus on is one particular program that I think deals with the first step of this creation step, of creating or having a sense of urgency. What we've seen in rural areas is that they get it, that their small businesses need access, and they're working with their providers as best they can. But what they also know is they need to show the value. They need to, in a way that's very clear for small communities. And so this is not the end-all be-all, but move your slide. Oh, thank you. Oh, just did that. Okay, thank you. So what we've done, and this is a new pilot for us, is we're now offering what we're calling e-commerce training for small businesses in rural areas. Different than a university typically does it, where people have to come to you to go to the classes, we go to them. We did this last year. We provided training for 68 small businesses, and what we offered then quickly after that was really some customized kinds of assessments and services aimed directly at that particular business. You can see the topics that we covered. It was really well received, and it's something that we think, again, can have an impact in other areas. How do I do this? This is crazy.
The left and right arrows?
Okay. Okay, great. Sorry, guys. If you're not familiar with Wisconsin, above Wisconsin is Lake Superior. Next to it is Lake Michigan. You can see we chose counties, and we work on a countywide basis. We chose counties that were very rural. For example, Ashland County, total population of 18,000. We're talking quite rural. We're also talking remote, and we always hear from these counties that, hey, no one remembers us way up here. And so we did this on purpose. We also knew that we were having great conversations and knowing that the local providers were wanting to expand services, and so we're tuned into this as well. So this is something that was very much intentionally chosen. Really couldn't overemphasize this. It needs to be locally led. I think we've heard this for the last 3 days and for years probably about the importance of having local stakeholders really lead this. We are not the shining knight that comes in and saves the day. We have resources, and we have a policy called the Wisconsin Idea of sharing the university resources to the edge of the state. We take that very, very seriously. But what we do have is we have faculty in every county. For those of you who have not worked with Extension, I would encourage you to think about that. It's something that we across the states, we talk to each other. We know that this issue is of importance. And again, we know the importance of access and adoption. And so I would encourage you to think about them as partners. One of the things that we were really excited about is being a partner with SNG. We do it a little bit differently than what Michael's done in other states, and he's paying close attention to how it's working for us as we are paying attention to what he's doing. We use this as an enticement. So when people sign up or are invited, and clearly this local coalition of folks led by our extension person, it might be the Chamber of Commerce being a part of that coalition. It might be a business person who just cares about having the businesses stay and thrive in a particular community. But that coalition very much handpicked who was invited to these trainings. Our average number of employees for the folks that did come was 7. And why we know that that's so important is we call them the core economy businesses. They are where a lot of the growth is taking place. If we all know, most of the businesses in our country are small businesses. There's a growing, what is called the cottage industry, where they're not even in parks or buildings anymore. They're working on their homes. That is very much growing, and so we were focused on that. The enticement was they filled out the form, they came to the training, and that was the first thing we walked through with them, and explained to them what they might be missing. What are those e-solutions that they hadn't thought of? And I'll tell you, it was a great variety. Some didn't have websites. They didn't see the value of that. We had people that were struggling to log on to their websites. They couldn't remember how to do that. To people who had the e-solutions and were wanting to improve. So, it was a great variety of continuum. It was pretty darn wide of training. But what we heard clearly was this was important information. They wanted to know how they compared with other folks. They wanted to know, gee, what are the top e-solutions I should even be thinking about? So it was very well received. The businesses that attended that first training, no surprise. Again, if you think of where they were, high tourism, a lot of second homes, a lot of folks from Chicago, for example, that have second homes or the southern part of the state. So we weren't surprised that retail was pretty darn high up there. But we've also done other research studies that I could tell you about that show that if there was better broadband in those areas, that they would spend up to 2 more weeks and have a major income or economic impact in those areas as well. So this was the mix that we had, and what I'm not going to spend time on this. You probably can't even see it, but the bottom line is, if those companies that attended that training, part of the information they received was what are the top 3 e-solutions that they might think about doing, even if they were to do 2 of those solutions in the future, in which we heard all of the companies said they were going to be making movements to do something to address this. That would result in $50,000 per business on an annual basis of additional revenue for those companies. So it's obvious the economic impact is there that benefits both them and the communities that they reside in. I'm not going to go through this. The feedback that we heard was great. I do just want to share that one story. So this actually hit national news. How many of you have heard the story about how people could actually hike out on Lake Superior because it was frozen to the ice? Oh, I have one hand I see up to the ice caves. It was a very, very big deal. It doesn't freeze over that often. So this was a company that actually came to our training. They weren't really on the direct path of where that 1 mile hike was to the ice caves, but the training got that person thinking. One of, geez, I got to connect better with locally with the economic development folks and with the Chamber of Commerce, which really benefited, because then they decided to go online and say, we'll equip you, stop at our store. We'll equip you with lunches, we'll equip you with the equipment that you might need, the outdoor gear that you might not have to go to the ice caves. Their business doubled that year because of this, and they were very, very excited about it. And the ice caves were again this last year, and again, people knew they existed. The quote that you might not be able to see here is that if you don't know what you don't know. They didn't realize they could get business from someone who didn't drive by their store. So again, a great story to tell and recognize. We're doing a second pilot. We changed things up. What happened was the customized training or customized assessments that we said we would do, the longer it took for us to reconnect with those businesses, the less apt that it was going to take place. So what we're doing now is we're doing the training, still offering the DEI scorecards. Again, we think that's really important. trying to connect the dots. This year we're doing the training at a provider's conference room. They're going through the training. They're going to have a few minutes at the end to say, let us for sure know if you need additional service from us, which we think is, again, connecting some of those dots. And what we're doing is people have signed up for a 45-minute session for the next day. So they can walk through in more detail their index card, or do they need help with social media? Do they want to improve their website? Whatever the topic is, we have three staff people that will be there offering that consultation. So quickly, why we are jazzed about this and think this is worth talking about is it doesn't cost an arm and a leg. And it's built off of local teams, which again, that idea of building local capacity is so important. I know you're going to be hearing from an SBDC person. We also have small business development in Extension, and that person is attending our training because we want them to know that it's just a portal. This is just the starting point of support, and that you have that through Extension, but you also have it locally with people right there in your own county. We're also, because of the fact that we're in a state that has some prohibitive language for municipal broadband, we're really all about public-private partnerships. If they have to have those relationships, that's a key starting point for people. So beyond this, this is our second pilot. We really believe this has to take place in all of Wisconsin, particularly in all the rural counties, and we have many, 72 counties. There's probably about 60 that are considered very rural. We really, again, think this local team is important, so I know I'm saying that a lot. And we are intentionally focused on adoption and utilization. In fact, we're just rolling out an adoption and utilization advisory council statewide. Has a legislator on it, has several telco organizations. The Telco Association of Wisconsin is on it, and many different backgrounds, all talking about how do we build the utilization, because that's where we're going to really see the economic impact take place. So again, that's something that we're really working with many folks on, including SNG. So thank you, and if we can be of a help around anything, we'd be happy to do that. Thanks.
So, thank you very much, Maria. I'm going to introduce Donna Edmondson, who's with the SBDC, as I try to also pull that up. Maybe we can get some help, please. Just to put into context, I mean, Maria has given some excellent examples about on-the-ground work and the benefits of these businesses getting online. Monica Babine has explained, both with the statewide initiatives, broadband initiatives. Monica has shown, the kind of planning work that has happened, and the policies that are needed for that. What I wanted Donna Edmondson, who we can now to see getting in front of her Skype, is she's with the SBDC network. And Donna, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay. We can see your shoulder. But can you just?
Okay.
What we're hoping to hear from you is, SBDCs have really not been.
You can see me, right?
Yeah. Not being part of this as much to this date, but I think going forward, we're getting the broadband in, and we're trying to drive those who, kind of use it and those who don't use it to now use it effectively. And how can SBDCs be part of that? Because you have a network across the country. So please.
Thanks, Michael. Yes. The Small Business Development Center Network is a private-public partnership program of the U.S. Small Business Administration. And we have nearly 1,000 centers across the United States and the U.S. territories. And our claim is that we have an SBDC center within 2 hours of almost anyone in the country. We provide free, let me repeat that, free one-on-one consulting and low-cost training for small business people. We work with people who are already in business. We work with people who are just starting a business. The program is 35 years old. We're celebrating our 35th anniversary this year. And we touch 1.3 to 1.5 million small businesses every year. We know that companies that work with SBDCs have higher sales, therefore higher growth rates than companies that don't access help. We increase the tax revenues that are generated to municipalities and states, as well as the federal government. We're one of the few federal programs that actually has a positive ROI. So we generate about $1.29 for every dollar that is given to the program through the federal appropriation, which comes to the network through the small business development centers. The SBDCs are hosted primarily in universities and community colleges, and what's important about that is that it allows the SBDC to reach back into the university for additional resources for their clients, which I think is very important. We do have 7 programs which are still hosted through the Economic Development Department of State Government. That means that they get their match money. The programs are required to match dollar for dollar every federal dollar they pull down. So in general, across the network, we're running about a $250 million program between federal, state, and private resources. I have enjoyed listening to what people have had to say today. I think that teaching businesses how to get on to broadband and how to utilize internet services and internet marketing is really the key today to having businesses grow and thrive. And I don't care whether you're located in a rural location, whether you're located in a city. It's important to be found. It's important for people to know what your services are and how to access them. So, Michael, do you have any questions for me?
Oh, that was great, Donna. And just to be clear, Donna's the VP of Operations for America's SBDC. So you're hearing this from one of the top people and the resources that we have available now. We've already been indicated we have 5 minutes left. So, Eric, do you want to field some questions from the audience or something else?
Yeah, sure. We'd like to reach out to the audience if you have any questions. But one, we do have university extension people here, and a lot of times universities are seen as underutilized assets. Just wanted to ask Monica and Maria, how do people in businesses, communities, how do they reach out to you, and what's the process that they could work with you guys, real quick?
Well, we have local, again, we have faculty in every county, so it's an easy thing. They're also just so involved with communities, and their job is to reach out in many respects. So it's easy to reach, but often, sometimes around the topic of broadband, it's not a natural, which is why our center, the Broadband and E-commerce Center, is often contacted, and then we act as kind of the catalyst for getting something going locally.
Very good. Some process.
Ditto, I gotcha.
Okay. Well, very good. So there you go. So if you need help, that's the way you do it. Galen.
Question to Maureen, right?
Maria.
Monica. I was interested in your research process, and you did a lot of study regarding the use of broadband and so forth amongst a number of different, what we call CAIs, community, anchor institutions. I was wondering if you were in touch with the broadband, the state broadband group they got $6 million to do mapping and planning in the state of Washington. And if you used their data at all, which was very current to your needs with regard to the use of where the broadband was and what people were doing and so forth, did you even know about that program?
Is this on? Yeah. Thank you, Galen. Our local technology planning team projects were funded through our Washington State Broadband Office. They were the entity that received the ARA SBI funding to do the mapping. We used the data from the mapping as part of our project. However, we vetted that data. Because what we found was that most of the data that was reported and the information that was on our state broadband map and that was then put forward to the federal maps were based on what telecom providers had given and a few anchor institutions. Here's a good example. We couldn't even get information from anchor institutions for fire because most of our fire departments in rural areas are volunteer and there's no one answering the phone or checking the email to provide input. So what we did and our state broadband office offered was an opportunity for you to go on to our state broadband map, take a test, a speed test, and post a comment. And so that helped true up our map. However, on our tribal lands, and we have 29 tribes in Washington, they often don't have street addresses. And so we found that in some of our more rural areas where we had tribes without street addresses, we had to add another step to help them go out on Google to learn how to identify where their longitude and latitude was so they could then put that in when they did the speed test. We lost people. They weren't going to do all those steps. We also lost people going on and vetting this map for us when they would go on to take the speed test if it took too long.
I'll leave my class on that.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we're out of time here.
Matt, I just heard that. Thank you.
Yeah. The thing is, ours ending, and so what now? And there's a lot of work to be done in terms of, one, getting the broadband out there, better broadband, but two, as we just heard, these are great initiatives we've heard from what's happening with the SPCs across the country, and the SBI work that has been done. I say that's that's as much or more than what has already been done to building the network. So the question, there's no answer right now, but what resources can we put towards this? Because just building it ain't going to do it. And there's Connect America, and then there's all these other funds that the states are administering, but it's all infrastructure, mostly infrastructure still. Where's the awareness and support to help these kind of initiatives across the country? So,
Yeah, I think we're at the bottom of the hour. If anybody has any questions, come up afterward, but other than that, we'll turn it over to the next session. Thank you, Don.
Joel? We have one more session that will finalize the RTC. I want to remind everyone that on the www.ruraltelecom.org, you will be able to access these. Again, it may take till the 30th of April because Frank has to make a living as non-legal consulting, but it will get done, and we thank Frank very much for doing this. The next one is Joel Mulder, and Joel is an example of how we work at RTC. We are made up of folks who are in the business world, in the government world, and folks who are in the just plain old they want to work on this whole issue as volunteers, etc. And we stretch all across the country, from Washington State to North Carolina to Utah to Arizona to Tennessee to just name it. We have all kinds of folks working with us. So, Joel, do you have your group?